Hi guys, my name is Courtney Swarms. This is my final project for CFD 562. I chose to do online child sexual abuse and legislation. We're going to be looking at what law enforcement and lawmakers have been doing and what they're doing now to help protect children from sexual exploitation and sexual abuse online. So the problem has obviously been around since the inception of the internet. We got a lot of good things from the internet, like a ton of knowledge, global communications at our fingertips. But with that came the dark part of the internet, which would include child pornography and the exploitation of children online. So there is a balancing act when it comes to legislation and the internet. So you have freedom of expression or freedom of protection. So especially here in the United States, the right to freedom of speech and the right to privacy are a cornerstone of the nation's democracy, and it's held very important to most of the citizens out here. On the other hand, you also have the right to protect children protected against physical, psychological, and sexual abuse. So this becomes kind of like a balancing act of how much can you track people or tap their internet or watch their phones without infringing on their civil liberties. And so how bad is the problem? So since 1990 to 2021, so 1990 is kind of when most individuals were getting the internet in their homes, their personal homes. FBI reports of exploitation and estimated number of people trading child pornography online have grown exponentially. Unfortunately, the number of FBI convictions for these crimes has not grown quite as much as the crimes themselves. So access is only increasing for children. By the time they're 13 years old now, we know that most of them have smartphones. For example, in Sweden, it's estimated that 85% of 9 to 12-year-olds have smartphones, and 97% of all 13 to 18-year-olds have their own smartphone as well. And obviously, with more access comes the higher probability that these children will be victimized. We're giving offenders an unprecedented all-access pass to their victims at this point. And there's no such thing really as safe places anymore, like homes or schools. And so this is a chart that shows cyber tips for online child exploitation. That does show that they're on the rise. This chart begins in January of 2018, and the last month it's recorded is December of 2021. The reason why I like this chart is because it does show you that increase that was that we had during the pandemic, when a lot more people were logged online for a lot longer. All right, and information that we've gathered from some studies. In a study of 10 to 17-year-olds, it was limited to aggressive and distressing solicitations in the past year in the U.S., but 3% of children said that they were solicited aggressively to post sexual videos or images of themselves. 2% said that they experienced distressing solicitations to post sexual images or videos of themselves. Meta-analysts on 9 studies done on the prevalence of those unwanted online sexual solicitation reports, they had a mean prevalence of a rate of 11.5%. And some more additional information that we've gathered from studies. Studies of actual police reported cases for internet solicitation crimes. So this kind of stuff we have talked a lot about in this course this semester, and it's mentioned throughout our text. Most victims were aged 12 years or older, and then most arrestees in these cases were known to the victim. So like we learned before, they're usually acquaintances, sometimes family members, and what they've done is they've used this technology to build more trust and to build a stronger relationship with their victims. So we have some co-occurrence here. A study of 791 American youths found a large majority of online cases were connected to offline contact as well. As we learned in the semester as well, it states in the textbook, a lot of these times the perpetrators will find their victims online, and through coercion or threats, they can get the victims to meet them, or sometimes they just catfish them and they don't know who they're actually meeting whenever they get to the meetup spot. And there was also a study of 1,700 Dutch adolescents, and they found a high overlap between online and offline sexual risk-taking among these adolescents. So basically, if a child is willing to take higher risks sexually offline, then we need to make sure that they're being safe online. So how much is education on internet safety really helping? So there are some great educational programs aimed at helping children stay safe online. Some of the bigger programs, or the platforms that perform the bigger programs out there, you guys will probably know, like Google, National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Common Sense Media, and PBS Kids. Those are some of the major ones, definitely not all of them. There are some major challenges, though, that these prevention efforts face, and mainly what it is research that's limited and limited literature, which tells me that we're not exactly sticking up to our end of the deal when it comes to field work and finding these statistics and these numbers that will help these programs better educate children on how to stay safe online. So this is a table that was put together by Google. As you can see, it lists a bunch of educational programs online, and then it also lists certain harms that children can find online. The reason why I have two of the programs highlighted is because they are the only two programs that you will find on this chart that actually touch every single one of those subjects as far as harms that a child can find online. So the courts on online child sexual abuse, they conducted a mixed method study in 2018 of 98 legal cases in Swedish district courts with children aged 7 to 17. They set out to find if and how children's experiences and psychological health were described in the written verdicts of the judges. Remember that these written verdicts do have a lot of say, and they hold a lot of weight in the punishment phase. So once again, with that considered, it was really disappointing to see that children's psychological health in online cases was mentioned in less than 48% of these cases. So what they don't understand is that online child sexual abuse and these situations, children feel as if they had no choice but to comply with the perpetrator's demands, which is the same as offline, even if that perpetrator is not standing in front of them. As we've learned in this course, they can have blackmail on these children. They can be threatening them or their family members to get them to comply to the demands. They don't need to be there in person. The victims often also talked about experiencing pain, both physically and psychologically. And once again, that lines up with the same as offline. They psychological pain and physical pain. And so in light of these findings, the study suggests that online child sexual abuse should not be viewed as essentially different or less severe than offline child sexual abuse. And I hope that all courts around the world know this now, and that these perpetrators should be treated just as if they were perpetrating in real life. And so law enforcement, obviously we know that law enforcement has made leaps and bounds as far as being able to track and apprehend these predators. Especially the technology that they use is definitely better and has made quite a bit of a impact in current attempts to find these guys. In fact, the profiles of internet child pornographers are based almost entirely on data from those who are arrested, which means that we are arresting more of them, and we're able to get them to talk about where and when they're finding these images and the exploitation, things about the dark net, and they're also kind of giving us a profile of what type of people we should be looking for. There is a detective that's listed in our textbook by the name of Detective Jim McLaughlin. He was actually considered one of the pioneers in technophilia, which is a term that he actually coined, and it refers to individuals who use internet to engage in sexual abuse involving children. He has over 750 arrests on online predators, which I think is very admirable for him. All right, so we also have now joint law enforcement efforts. So the first one came about in 1998, and that was the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force program. And it brought together different task force, federal and local law enforcement and prosecutorial agencies. And the purpose of these programs are to create funding for training programs in hopes of helping curb the substantial growth of online child exploitation. So with this task force, I feel like they really have helped. You can see that since 1998, the ICAC task force have viewed or reviewed more than 1.4 million reports of online child exploitation, and that resulted in arrest of more than 123,000 of those reports. So earlier legislation, so one of the first pieces of major legislation enacted to help protect children is the Protect Our Children Act of 2008. The Protect Our Children Act of 2008 was established to create a national ICAC task force program. So we kind of just talked about the ICAC task force program. This one was supposed to be a national one, and it was supposed to be headed by the Department of Justice, who was to increase these resources for regional computer forensic labs and to make other improvements to increase the ability of law enforcement, both local and federal, to investigate and prosecute child predators. The amount that was given between 2009 and 2016 was $2 million, which is about $60,000 worth of grants a year. Current legislation that we've got is the Eliminating Abusive and Rampant Neglect of Interactive Technologies Act, or the EARN-IT Act. It was passed in 2022, so this year. It was passed in February. The EARN-IT Act encourages, and I tell you to pay attention to the wording inside of this legislation. It encourages the tech industries to take online child sexual exploitation seriously and removes the blanket immunity for violations of laws related to online child sexual abuse material. So I don't know about you guys, but I was actually kind of surprised to see that there was even at some point a blanket immunity for violations of laws related to online child sexual abuse for these tech industries. And so right now we have a pretty controversial bill sitting on the Senate floor. It was put there in February of 2021. It's a bill, has not been passed into law yet. Like I said, it is pretty controversial because, once again, it's targeting these tech platforms. It's basically telling them that they need to be tougher on and fined more for they're not doing enough to remove child sexual abuse material, basically. And so they're trying to hold these guys accountable for that. So tech platforms right now can only face criminal charges or prosecution at the federal level. And this new legislation would allow states to bring both civil and criminal laws or legislations against tech companies. So of course it's being fought by large tech companies, especially tech companies like Facebook, because this opens them up to a much larger criminal litigation situation and also civil. I will be happy when it shows that individuals can start bringing these tech companies to civil court as well. So is it enough? Although we've made some great strides, we've passed some laws, we've proposed some bills, we've made task force, we've have education-based prevention programs. I don't think, and I think a lot of people would be with me on this, that we're quite doing enough to help keep these children safe online. We have to understand that these are children, their brains aren't fully developed, and they are being targeted by fully developed adults who know what they're doing and know how to groom and talk to children. So we need to be doing more in the field. Legislation needs to be getting pushed to hold these tech companies, which is where a lot of this exploitation is going on. We need to be holding these people more accountable. So here are some of my references and the last of my references, and I appreciate you watching my video. Thank you so much, guys.